Hey everybody, it's Rob Ryerson, the political director of Vote Common Good, and this is another episode of Common Good Candidates. You know, at Vote Common Good, we ask voters to use the common good as their voting criteria. We think loving your neighbor is something you ought to do even when you're in the voting booth. And when people are running for office, we ask them to use the common good as their governing criteria. Now, it's not a bunch of policy positions where you have to check all the boxes. It's much more a shared set of values, a sense of, hey, you know what? We're in this thing together, and we need to make sure we do what's good for everybody. And so we have a whole bunch of candidates for common good, people who've signed up and said, yeah, that's what I'm all about. And today we're going to have a conversation with one of those candidates. His name is Mark Pinsley, and he is running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District. Mark, thanks so much for being on the show. So great to talk with you today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to decide that you wanted to run for office and throw your hat in this ring and run for Congress there in
Yeah,
Eastern PA?
it was kind of a journey for sure. It really did start with Trump for me. So like when his first election, he was talking about the Mexicans and the Muslims, and I'm Jewish. And so you kind of know where that goes. And
Mm.
it really aggravated me right away. And it made me want to get into politics. And I had never wanted to be in politics before. Like, quite honestly, every 4 years, I woke up, I knocked on some doors for somebody. I may have given a little bit of money to whoever the presidential candidate was. And then I went back to sleep. And then, Trump got elected. And like, I will never do that again. Like, I will always vote. I know, I learned who all the candidates are. Um, and so, or initially, really, what ended up happening was I went and I became a commissioner of my township. Which is
Mm.
a really small position. You go twice a month. I'm a Democrat. There was 4 Republicans there. We worked together really well. A lot of it's just simple things, right? Like getting potholes filled, making sure that the trash gets picked up, but really important, to your community. And so I did that, and then eventually the party came to me and asked me to run for controller. At the time, I didn't even know what controller was. Like I'm in finance, I know what a controller was, but I didn't know what it meant to the government. And so I ended up reading up about it, and I'm like, oh, that really fits who I am. Like I've been senior staff member at very large companies. My background is in finance. I have my MBA in finance, and so I was like, oh, great, maybe I can help more people. And so I became controller, and that has been my goal, is just like to help as many people as I can by using every lever of power that I have access to. Um, and then, Trump 2.0 came in,
Yeah.
um, and I just felt like, one of the sort of the final blows for me was, this big, beautiful bill. Um, 2 things, so one thing, my brother is learning disabled and mentally
Mm.
and intellectually. And so, he's on Medicaid, he works full time. But he can't fill out the paperwork that it takes to get on Medicaid.
Yeah.
So my sister and I do that for him once a year. We get together, and it's not easy. Like even she and I get together, and we're like, okay, what is this? It's a mess. We got to figure
Yeah.
this out. But we do it. And now with the new bill, we've got to do that twice a year, and he has work requirements. So 12 times a year, we're gonna have to fill out paperwork on work requirements. And so like that, as controller, I actually spend $103 million. I sign on checks for $103 million of Medicaid bills that go for the mental and intellectually disabled. That's about 20,000 people in my area. And so
Mm.
I imagine of those 20,000, many of them don't have a brother or a sister that can help.
Yeah.
And we took that money, $1.1 trillion, and we gave it to the rich. And like I think that was kind of the final straw for me, where I was like, I need to jump in. I need to try and help people, and we need to try and get that back. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever get Medicaid back, but like I'm for moving forward to Medicare for all or universal health care, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Um, Yeah. So yes. So absolutely right. So Mark, I often say that there are maybe 15 competitive districts in America.
Yeah.
And, because of gerrymandering and the way districts have been drawn and the polarization, and everything, there's basically 15 competitive districts.
Yep.
You happen to be in one of those districts, one of those 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pennsylvania's seventh, and I'll go ahead and show folks here on the map in case they don't know where Pennsylvania's seventh district is. It is in eastern Pennsylvania. It is Allentown, Bethlehem, that area. It is, just razor thin margins over the last several elections. Was represented by Susan Wild, who
Yep.
was a candidate for Common Good. In fact, the very first Vote Common Good event we ever did was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, with Susan Wild.
Is that right?
Yep,
Interesting.
yep.
Yeah.
In 2018, we did we went to 31 districts and did 31 events in 31 different districts in 37 days. We started in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, ended up in Fresno, California, and urging people to help flip the House to stop Donald Trump. And we started there in Bethlehem, and it was so funny. I said to Susan, "Hey, you've got like 8 minutes to speak, maybe 6 would be better." And
Yeah.
she spoke for over 25. So
It's hard for us politicians to keep it short, right?
yeah. So we have been to your district many times with Vote Common Good. It's a place that we absolutely love, that holds a special place in our hearts. Talk about talk about you are actually in one of those very rare purple districts, and how is that shaping your campaign and how you think about how you're running?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I mean, I'm running on my values, so I don't care whether it's purple or red or blue. Like, I'm very focused on how I think about things. What I think a mistake that I think that people have been making just in general is, look, one of the things that I think is going to happen is in the general election, I don't care where you are, the Democrats are going to vote for the Democrat for the most part, the Republicans are going to vote for the Republican for the most part, and then you have this group of independents that you have to convince that you're the right candidate for. And I think a lot of people think of independents as centrists or moderates, and that is absolutely not true, right? Like, many of them are just upset with the parties and they want to have nothing to do with it. Maybe they lean to the left, maybe they lean to the right, or in many cases, maybe they pick from A and pick from B. Like, I'm very much for Medicare for all, but I'm also very protective of my guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what my role is to show who I am, and so that they know, and that they can then make a decision like, do my values align with theirs? And I tend to believe in this world like they do, or many of them will agree with me, and we'll find out, right? Ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So Eastern Pennsylvania, and in particularly your area, I recently watched the Billy Joel documentary, and so like I've got Allentown on my mind. Because he talks about writing the song about Allentown.
Yeah, I want to see that. I haven't seen that
Oh, it's
documentary yet.
so good. It is. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, good.
And it seems like it's an area that's been hit very hard in tough economic times, and as manufacturing's moved out of the country, and what's the economy like in your district, and what's people's mood about the economy?
Well, I think that people's mood is probably very similar to the rest of the country, right? It's not great, and the issue really is that they work hard, but they're not seeing their wages go up, or even if they're seeing their wages go up, it's not going up to the same extent that
Yeah.
inflation is going up.
Yeah.
And that's becoming hard for everyone. I mean, one of my platform items is that I believe that we should tax wealth, not workers. And one of the issues is like we have 18 billionaires right here in Pennsylvania, and if you think about that, they're making at least $1 million a week in interest, right? So they're not working; they're making money on their money. Fine, I don't have a problem with that. The problem is, what are they doing with their money? They're taking that money and they're investing it in homes, right? So now all of a sudden the prices of our homes go up, and they're not buying one home at a time, they're buying in bulk. And then they're not like reselling those homes, they're renting those homes. So you and I don't have an opportunity to actually buy that home, or more importantly, my son and my daughter don't have an opportunity to buy a home. And so like I really do believe that people aren't making necessarily that direct line that I just made, right? They're just seeing the cost of groceries is going up. Why? Well, because we have monopolies, right? Like ultimately we have monopolies. We also have, by the way, we have, China that owns like most of the pig stock. We've got Saudi Arabia taking our water. Like there's a lot of bad stuff that's going on that's causing our prices to go up. And we really need to look at this almost the same way we look at, IT and the amount of IT that we're willing to give to outside countries. There is some national security issues around our food.
Yeah. I really like that way to think about it. That food is a national security issue for sure. Tell us about about you personally. Like you mentioned that you have a background in finance. You an Eagles fan? What lights you up? Like what are the
It's funny. I was never an Eagles fan. I never got into sports, I guess. Like I was really always interested in IT. So just high tech, so like ChatGPT just kind of excites me as to like what the possibilities are in the future. When I was a kid, like I was one of the first ones on the internet, like when it first came out. There's just a lot of, I'll tell you what I really enjoy. I really enjoy learning. I've taken classes on Jewish ethics as an example. I've taken classes on, actually so many different things, some piano lessons, and I can't, I used to be able to play when I was a kid, but I can't play so much anymore, So I think I really do enjoy that. And I think one of the thing about my background was, like I was really growing up. I mean, I was really a capitalist, right? Like I was like, we were poor and I didn't want to be poor anymore.
Yeah.
And I was relatively speaking successful, meaning I'm not poor anymore. I'm not a billionaire by any stretch. I wish I was, but I did get a chance to work in corporate America. And what I have seen in corporate America is how they think, how I thought. And, what they're interested in ultimately is profit, but they do care about society because obviously they want to make money, right? And so like, I think that's something unique that I bring to the table, which is, I can talk to big business in their language and talk to them about what the population's need is. Not just in terms of the product, but in terms of what do we need back from corporations so that they can continue to be successful, but that they can also help us be successful and their employees be successful.
Yeah. So this is super interesting to me because, you're talking about having a foot in that very capitalistic culture. And at the same time, you're talking about Medicare for all, which is typically like, in the big Democratic tent, it's the socialists, quote unquote socialists in the party that get labeled with that. How do you straddle those two things? Where are you at with that? How do you think about that? And what are your thoughts about kind of the tension that exists within the Democratic Party between kind of the moderates and the more leftists?
Well, first off, I think that anybody who does not believe in Medicare for all has actually not done the investigation that they should be doing. Full stop.
Totally.
Right. And what I will.
Yes. Yeah. The idea, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the idea that health insurance is tied to employment is such a drain on entrepreneurship and capitalism and freedom and opportunity. It keeps people. Right now, there is a woman sitting at a desk, maybe in Bentonville, Arkansas, or maybe in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and she has got the idea for the next big thing. But she
can't do
can't
it.
she can't leave her job because her daughter has a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
And she's and like this is Medicare for all frees us from all of that. It gives people more economic freedom. So anyways, that's my little soapbox.
No,
But
I am
yeah.
100% with you. You know, one of the things that I ended up doing here as controller. So, as an aside, so like, previously when I was, a senior staff member at big companies, we always talked about healthcare, right? It's a major downer for big
Yes.
companies. And then when I owned my own company, it was terrible. It was terrible. Every year I have to, negotiate. There'd be like 30% increases in healthcare, which means I'm cutting back, which means I'm not doing as well for my employees. And we paid 100%, by the way. We paid 100% for our
Yeah.
employees. And every year it was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to increase their copay, or I'm going to have to increase, right, in order to manage my own costs. So when I got here as controller, it was one of the first things I investigated was the healthcare. Like, okay, let me dive in and understand it. And so one of the things that I looked at first was the pharmacy, right? So we spend about $7 million of pharmacy on our employees. We're self-insured, which means we pay. So if you go to the pharmacist and you buy a $100 drug and you pay your $10 copay, Lehigh County pays the $90. So I went to the administrator, right? So we get a card just like everyone else, like what you would think of as an insurance card. And I went to the administrator and I said, okay, I know that Rob got this $100 drug. He paid his $10. We gave you $90. Show me that money, make it to the pharmacist. No, sir, I'm sorry, we can't do that. That's, private information. I'm like, it's private information? What are you I'm paying you as an administrator. Okay. So I go to the pharmacist because I know what pharmacist you went to. And I say, look, Rob came in, he paid for a $100 job, blah, blah, blah. Did you get the $90 from my administrator? Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I can't tell you because I have a non-disclosure with the administrator.
Wow.
So now what do I know? They're skimming off the top, right? And so of that 7 million,
Processing fees. We call them processing fees, Mark.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I also, are you familiar with GoodRx?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually took all of the drugs that we bought and I ran them against GoodRx, right? And I found we would have saved several $100,000
Yeah.
instead of using our insurance program if we had used GoodRx.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so of that on the pharmacy side, we spent 7 million. We found $3 million worth of what I would call grift.
Wow.
And we changed providers. We didn't have to change any medications. We didn't have to change your pharmacy. We just saved 40%. And like I did the same thing on the medical side. It's around 20% savings, meaning when you go to the hospital, you're being overcharged many times. And so you look at that and you're like, and then you look at the Medicare rates and what they pay, or the VA, even better, right? And you look at what they have negotiated their rates to be. You're like, there's no reason, first off, that any company should have to negotiate every year on their prices.
Yes.
It's already being done by the government. We already know what they pay. They tell us what they pay, right? Why should we be paying so much more? So like that's why I am just hugely a Medicare for All fan.
Yeah.
And to your point sort of about like being that capitalist, but being on the other side, I guess like having come out of that, and going into politics, man, my eyes were really opened as to the injustice that was in the world that I just did not realize was there. Like, we donated money every year to different causes, my wife and I did, because, you find a thing that you're interested in. But like when you get into politics, all of a sudden you learn so much about the injustice and like the things that you need to help.
Yeah.
And like there will never be a perfect world, but we can certainly make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What has your first time running, for Congress? You've been a little bit in kind of the local politics thing. What has surprised you about running for Congress? What give people a little window into like what it's really like. It's not It's not the West Wing, right? Like people think politics is the West Wing. It's not like that.
No.
What surprised you, or what do you think people might be surprised about?
Well, let's just talk about first. I'll talk about politics in general. Of the thing that I was surprised about, which is to some extent, and this isn't exactly the right numbers, but 50% of the people like you for no reason, and 50% of the people hate you for no reason.
Yes.
Right? Like they don't know you.
That is so well said.
And that was hard to get used to,
Yeah.
like because normally, like I like to get to know people, and I'll talk to anyone, right? Like
Yeah.
Republican, Independent, Libertarian, I don't care who calls me. So I think that was the first thing that was really shocking to me is like we really don't listen to each other once you're in politics, like and we should. On the congressional campaign, what I have found is that some of it is definitely it's like it's almost like when you were a kid and they had the contests, the beauty contests or whatever it was that really had nothing to do with anything. It was just a popularity contest of some type or another.
Yeah.
That's kind of true here too, unfortunately. Like I want to see the people that actually know what they're talking about and understand not every issue, obviously, but at least the issues that are important to them,
Yeah.
and then know where to go to get information that is important to you or you or you.
Yeah.
So that we can respond to that. And then I want people to really understand the values, of the candidate, and I just, I think that they're looking for, the little pitch, the 2 second, whatever that they hear, and I think that's frustrating to me because I think in order to get Congress to be a better place, we need to put good people in that understand the issues and understand how to fight for the issue that's important to them or their constituency.
Yeah. And you've got, you had a Democratic representative.
Yeah.
She was defeated. Sadly, Susan Wild defeated in this last election. So you are running in the Democratic primary. I am
Yep.
mad. Like, is Susan running again?
No, she's not.
Okay. I imagine that that's going to be a crowded field because it's one of those, like, hey, whoever is the Democratic nominee's got a decent shot of winning this thing.
Yeah.
Because it is one of the contested districts, and then you figure midterm and the presidential, first midterm and a presidential, all of that stuff that factors in that tends to sway things in in a Democratic candidate's direction this time around. So what's a primary like for you? How's that look? Give us the details on that.
Yeah, so there's 5 of us running. I would probably say in this moment, who I consider to be my primary competitor is a gentleman named Lamont. He's the executive over at Northampton, and I'm the controller here in Lehigh County. So the two of us have been elected, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, whether we're actually the two big competitors, I don't know. But, like, we've been at least elected a few times. So we have people that know our names and things like that. I think the other candidates are all nice people as well. And, like, ultimately, unfortunately, a lot of this comes down to raising money. So, like, whoever raises the most, has the most likelihood of winning, and then down on the line, I suppose. Lamont and I have an edge there, not necessarily in terms of money, but we could actually raise a little bit of less money because people know our names already.
Yeah.
But like it's been a kind race. Like nobody's attacking each other, so like I've been happy about that. We're very different people, even though we share a lot of the same values. So I think look, I'm going to work hard to gain everyone's vote. I really do believe in trying to share my values and what they are, and how what we should be doing, and also just show like I've read about these things. Like I've looked into these things. I really do throw myself into it in that way.
Yeah.
And that's the value. That's one of the values that I think I bring. along with, as I said, sort of like having this understanding of capitalism and like making that shift
Yeah.
to being a politician. So being able to talk to the capitalists and being able
Yeah.
to say, look, like this won't go well for us if democracy continues on the path that it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to be bilingual in in
Yes.
these different spaces.
Yep.
So as I said in the beginning, we ask candidates that are running for office that if they're elected, they'll use the common good as their governing criteria.
Yep.
When you hear a phrase like the common good, what does that mean to you? How does that resonate with you? How does that look? How does that show up in how you imagine the kind of congressperson you would be?
Yeah. So I think of it in my phraseology, it would be for the people, not the powerful. Right. That's what I think. Um, and some examples of that, or like small examples, I found, for example, that in the prison, a prisoner phone call, for every dollar they were spending, the county was getting a 70-cent commission on that. So 2 years ago, I think we got $650,000 in commissions. That's off the backs, not of the prisoners themselves, but of their loved ones that were paying for the phone calls. So I think like being for the people is being for them. They're already locked up, like right. They're doing their duty to to society. More recently, I called for the pension fund to stop investing in Tesla. Right. First off, Tesla's fundamentals are terrible, and you could see what Elon Musk is doing to the brand. Right. And so like I do that to protect our pension from the ups and downs of whatever Tesla is going to do. Like I'm not saying it won't be good in the future. I'm saying I don't know what it's going to look like now. We need to be careful there. And then also like, one of the things that I just believe in is that everything that we should do, everything that we do is not for a party. It's for the people, all of the people, and, I did an investigation about this doctor. It actually wasn't about a doctor, but it was about these families that were having children taken away from them and put into foster care. And it turned out that there was this doctor that was potentially misdiagnosing medical child abuse. And so I had talked to 15 families, vetted them all. They had gone through therapy and a whole bunch of stuff. They were not child abusers. I put out a report about this. The doctor was retired, in 4 months. And recently, because of that, a gentleman that had been incarcerated, she was the only witness. This doctor was the only witness. He got 20 to 40 years for murdering his daughter, who was like a 3-month-old. I don't know what happened to the daughter, and I'm not saying that he was innocent or guilty. What I am saying is that his trial was unfair. And we basically got him a new trial. That it was vacated. The DA and he came to some agreement, and so now he's getting out after 9 years instead of being stuck in 20. I don't know what party he is. I don't know anything about the gentleman. I've never spoken with him. I just felt like there was an injustice that happened and it needed to be corrected.
Mark, such great work.
Thanks.
Hearing what you've been able to do for the people of Lehigh County, makes me think, wow, you are absolutely the kind of person that we want representing us in Congress. So if people are thinking that way, how can they find you? How can they connect? How can they support you? What does all that look like?
Yeah, so votemarkpinsley.com is my website. So it's Pinsley, Pinsley. Certainly donations are great. And look, you max out at $3,500 a person. So, feel free to give as much as you can. But other help is good as well, like letting people know in the Valley that you've heard about me in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, or shooting me an email if there's other ways that you think that you can help. But I'm open to anything that somebody can do to raise awareness about my campaign. I would certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, great. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. Thank you for running for Congress, and thank you for being a candidate for Common Good.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for inviting me on.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation with Mark Pinsley. head over to his website, smash that donate button, right? And we will chat with you again when we've got another great candidate for common good. Bye-bye.